The former director of the National Prosecuting Authority, Bulelani Ngcuka, says a call from prosecutor Gerda Ferreira was the beginning of a nightmare for him. In his newly released book, Bulelani Ngcuka, The Sting in the Tail, that's the title of the book, he touches on how Ferreira excitedly told him that they had evidence linking the then Deputy President Jacob Zuma to the arms deal corruption. However, he made a decision not to prosecute. 19 years later, Zuma's corruption case is still in court, although his trial is yet to get underway. Well, Mr. Ngcuka joins me in studio now to talk to us about the reasons you decided to write this book, and I want to start with the question why you felt it necessary to write this book, but also importantly, what do you want the reader to take away from your life experiences?
Thanks very much for having me here, and good day to you and the viewers. Many people had asked me to record my life incidences.
Yeah.
My kids, my family, my friends. Because so many people have got views about me and about the things that I did or didn't do. Thought that it is important to just to record from my perspective what I went through.
Yeah.
What do I want the public to take out of this? I don't know. Other than, for me, it is just a recording of my life story. I think people must feel free, if there are any lessons to learn or anything that they think is valuable, must feel free to take from it.
Let's touch then on some of what is contained in the book. You write in it that you were among the first cohort of ANC members to go to Parliament, and this was post the 1994 elections. You write about the hopes, the aspirations of what kind of country you dreamed of. What does that look like today?
Well, it's a far cry from what we wanted. Obviously, we are disappointed with how things have turned out. And we ask ourselves this very question every day. Is this what we went to prison for? And the answer is definitely not. Was the sacrifice well worth? Yes, indeed. Achieving our freedom was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Remember, we've been oppressed for well over 300 years. And that moment in our lives was very critical. And this was something that our forefathers, our fathers, had failed to achieve. And we managed to get it. And unfortunately, we're messing it up ourselves.
You're talking about messing it up yourselves. I'm not going to put myself in your shoes. I'm very young. But at that time, some people would hold the view that someone had already started alluding to the kind of corruption that South Africa would see. And this was even before the 1994 elections. And this is Chris Hani, who sadly gets killed even before the dawn of democracy. Gets killed in 1993. But he'd already alluded to comrades who would be seen in German sedans and what have you. Why do you think that he warned about that? I know that I'm now taking you away from your book, but it's not to say that this was unforeseen.
No, I don't know why Chris would have said that at the time. Probably he was worried about some things that I'm not aware of. You must remember that the comrades came back from exile, where they had no cars. And so probably he was seeing some of the people, when they got back, they got better jobs and were able to provide for themselves. Maybe he was responding to that. At that particular point in time, I had no reason to be worried that we'll end up where we are, for me, myself. So I don't know what could have motivated him to say that.
Maybe he was seeing certain signals, because before we get to what would become one of South Africa's big scandals, and that's the arms deal, you were central in the development of the National Prosecuting Authority, the modeling, what it would look like. And I want us to pay particular attention to the Scorpions outfit, which was the investigative arm. What was the thinking as you developed this institution called the National Prosecuting Authority?
Well, I make reference to that in my book. When I was appointed to be the National Director of Public Prosecutions, we were faced with escalating crime in the country, with the problem of pipe bombs in the Western Cape, with high incidence of carjackings in Gauteng, with problems of with massacres in KZN. So this was the problem. And with no effective prosecution taking place. And so the challenge really was what to do. So fortunately, the National Prosecuting Authority Act made provision for the establishment of investigating directorates into organized crime. And so that's where I started. I created those investigating directorates. But as we were working through with them, we identified that there were certain shortcomings in the work that we're doing, and therefore we needed more powers. For example, the investigating officers that were attached to the IDOC, they belonged to the police and were accountable to the police, even though they were working with us.
Why was that a problem?
Because they had to report to the police and then come back and report to us. They would get the resources for the work that they have to do from the police, not from us. So you would ask them to go and do something. They have to wait for authorization from the police from the other side. And that affected the efficiency of the investigations that we're conducting. And so fortunately, I tell the story in the book actually, that the elections of 1999, I had voted in Cape Town and I was sitting comfortably there when I got a call from Sidi Mufumati, who asked me to report to the Deputy President's residence in Pretoria at the time. He was staying there, Deputy President Mbeki was staying at OR Tambo residence. So I had to fly here, and I got there. And he said he has been campaigning, going all around the country, and said that there's a possibility that the elections might win, the ANC might win the elections. And therefore, there's a likelihood that he might be elected president of the country. This is 99, after voting. And he says, as he was campaigning around the country, people were complaining to him about crime. So he has to be seen to be doing something. We must come up with, must go and think and be creative, find something that can be done that would appeal to the people of this country and be seen that the ANC is serious about fighting crime. So he gave us that challenge.
Yeah.
I went back to the office and I told the guys, hey, we have an opportunity to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So I called a few guys around and we started, we thought about it, we worked on it, and went back to him with a proposal that let's create an institution which will have the features to be prosecution-led investigation, and that will be intelligence-driven. So that you can put the prosecutors, the intelligence, the investigators all under one roof and work in teams.
Yeah.
So we created this institution. And so we went back to him, he accepted it, and he announced in Parliament. And then he gave us very tight deadlines. He said he wants this to be up, this unit to be up and running within 6 months. And the question then was, what are you going to call it?
Yeah.
We wanted a popular name. We started throwing around ideas. And one evening we were sitting there with him, Minister Maduna, Steve Chwete. By then, Sydney had moved on. Steve had now become the Minister of Police. And so Steve stood up to go to the bathroom and started singing. Ndiyamoyika unomatukutuane. And we always said, that's the name. It will be Nomatukutuane. That's the Scorpions. That's how it happened.
And so, with the story that you're telling, that the arrangement at the time was that the investigative directorate it reported to the police. Its financing came from the police. You turned that on its head. The Scorpions were now within the NPA.
That's correct.
It's gone back, though, to exactly that, because that's where DPCI, I think it's the Hawks, as they call it today.
Yes.
It reports to the police.
Yes.
Is that taking us back, in your view? Is that assisting?
Well, that's why, I mean, you have the DPCI because they did away with the Scorpions. That was a model that was functioning. If you go back and check, look at the success rate. I can tell you now that we stopped the bombings in the Western Cape. We arrested most of those people who were involved with the massacres in KZN. We made a serious dent into organized crime here. You look at the track record of the Scorpions. It was very effective. The approval ratings throughout of the Scorpions were sitting in the 90s. Regardless of who conducted the surveys, the results were the same. And therefore, it was an institution that was very popular, that was very efficient and very effective. And they destroyed it. And so you find the limitations with the DPCI. You know for yourself now. There have been very few prosecutions that have taken place. I don't have to tell you that. But there have been challenges. Yeah. I hope the investigating directorate that has been set up, that is working with the DPCIs, will be able to overcome those challenges. I remain optimistic.
Would you recommend to this president that you revert to the old way?
Absolutely, without doubt.
Do you think the
without
ANC,
any hesitation.
Do you think the ANC of today would accept that proposal if it is serious about rooting out corruption?
No, I think the current leadership would accept that. In fact, the Zondo Commission has made recommendation that something similar should be done. I think that the mere fact that the president set up the investigating directorate shows that, in fact, he takes this very seriously.
Then came, let's come back to the book, then came one of the tumultuous periods in your life, and that was the arms deal case, one of the biggest in the country. I want you to take us back to that phone call you received from Gerda, or is it Gerda Ferreira?
Gerda.
What did this prosecutor say to you, and why was that the nightmare for you?
You must remember that Scopa had tasked the Auditor General, the NPA, and the Public Protector to do a joint investigation into the arms deal. We did that and we submitted our report. And we could not find that there was any corruption insofar as the principal agreements were concerned, in those instances where the government as the government was involved. However, in our investigations we discovered that the chief of the procurement, which was Shabir Sheikh, was linked to one. Shabir Sheikh was the brother, Chippy Sheikh was the brother of Shabir Sheikh, who had done a deal with one of the companies, Thales. And so we started to investigate if there was any connection there. because Chepi was involved. He was the chief procurement in the Defense Force. And his brother ended up with a contract. And so we had to investigate that. At that time, I must say, there was nothing that involved Jacob Zuma. His name was not there. And so I'm sitting in Grahamstown, attending the Grahamstown Arts Festival, having taken leave, which is in June of that year. I get this call from Gerda to say, "Sir, we found evidence against Jacob Zuma." I said, "What?" He said, "Yes, he's linked to the arms deal." At that time, you must remember, Mr. Zuma was the MEC in KZN. He was not involved in the national government, and therefore he was not
economic development.
And he was not a party, therefore, even to the negotiations for these things. I said, "What?" He said, "Yes," and he told me about the famous encrypted fax. I said, "Yo, there comes trouble." And I sat there for some time thinking about it. No. I said to myself, no. This can't be true. JZ can't do such a thing. I said, well, what if it is true? What then do we do?
At this time?
It's a Saturday. I've seen nothing. I've just got a telephone call.
Right. But the position of Mr. Zuma, what position is he in government right now? Because you're taking...
At that point in time.
Right.
He was just the MEC. Okay. So he was not involved in the national government. He was an MEC there.
Right.
So I said, oh, okay. Well, let's see. What is this evidence that they say they have? But what if it turns out that it is true? So I said, okay, I'll see you when I get back to Pretoria on Monday. And that was effectively the end of my holiday. Because I was sitting there thinking about this, thinking about that. As we say in Xhosa, ingqondo yami ayithathi ibeka. It was going this way, going that way, going this way, going that way. Think about all sorts of implications for it. So I got back to the office and they came and asked us to authorize the investigation now, to extend the investigation to include investigating Jacob Zuma. We said, well, where's the facts? They say they don't have it. It's been misplaced. The lady who said they had it went back to look for it, she couldn't find it. I said, well...
Just to explain to the viewers, I'm sorry to cut in, just to explain to the viewers, the encrypted fax is supposedly the evidence that would prove an arrangement of the 500,000 that former president, he was deputy president at that time, he would have been receiving, or that would have been arranged on his behalf by Mr. Shabir Sheikh.
That's correct.
Is that it?
That's it.
Good.
Yeah. So they say, no, the lady who had the fax, she has misplaced it. So I said, well, no. What's going on here? Remember, the guys who are investigating this, Gerda and then Billy and so forth, are people I found in this institution, in the NPA. These are not the people who come with me from outside of the NPA. So I have my doubts and my suspicion. No. So I say, well, if you had this fact, we would probably have authorized that investigation. But if it's not there, then it's very, very difficult for me to authorize it. So they left. And I was thinking to myself, no, man, are these guys not setting me up? You know. So they come back. A day or two later, I said, we've got it. We've got the facts. Wow. So we want you now to authorize this. Hey, man. You know the feeling, I had this feeling that they were setting me up the first time around. and they wanted me to commit. Now that I had committed that, if you have the facts, I'll authorize, they come and say, So I said, no, leave it with me. I'll think about it. So I thought about it.
Yeah.
The first person, of course, I told was my wife. Hey, bro, you got problems. There is this thing. It's going to cause lots of problems. But I was clear even then that I have to authorize the investigation. That's my duty. So she understood that very well. And then I called the Minister of Justice, Maduna at the time, and I told him this. He says, no, you can't be right. I said, well, I'm right. This is what has happened. So we agreed that we have to brief the president. So I went to see him on my own.
And this particular instance is what some people have started writing about. The reaction of the former president to this information. What did he say? Take us back to the moment you walk through the door and you have this news, because it is yourself and the Minister of Justice.
No, at that time I was alone.
I
went to see him alone. I left the minister. I saw the minister on a different day. And then when I had to go and brief the president, Maduna was not there on that day. But subsequently in the meetings, he was there. I want to brief the president essentially about two cases. At that time, we were busy with the case of Tony Yengeni, as well as the deputy president. So I said to the president at the time, well, I have sleepless nights. I said, I have this case of Tony Yengeni, which was a small thing in the nature of things. Briefed him about it. Then I said, yeah, there's one that's quite bad. Briefed him about this. He kept quiet for some time. And says, no, man, JZ, no. His reaction was the same as mine. No, JZ can't do this. Couldn't have happened to him. He then told me the story of Makwetu, former president of the PAC.
Clarence Makwetu.
Clarence Makwetu was the president of the PAC and the member of parliament in the National Assembly. He was a member of National Assembly in parliament. He was then replaced by Stanley Mukhoba, as the president of the PAC. So the PAC asked him to resign, and he refused. And they sent a letter to Parliament replacing him.
Yeah.
So Makwetu took Parliament to court to ask that they must reinstate his seat. And he lost that case. And there was a cost order made against him. So he had to pay this cost to Parliament. And at that time he was unemployed, he had no money, he had gone back to Kofi-Mvaba. And so he appealed to Frini to write off this cost. Frini refused. So he went to the president and said, can he please speak to Frini? Frini said, no, we can't do that. The Auditor General is going to hold me accountable for this. So the president then arranged for some business people to come to the rescue of Makwetu and paid. Yeah. And paid the cost on behalf of Makwetu. He then turned to me and said, Bulelani, if I can do this for Makwetu, what would stop me for doing this for Zuma? JZ is my brother. We've been in the struggle together. We've been in the trenches. We've worked for a long time together. I would never leave him in a ledge. So he then asked me, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to authorize the investigation, which I did.
And he never attempted to stop you?
No.
Do you
Even if he had tried, I wouldn't have agreed to.
Can I ask you the question? Knowing the events that occurred, 2007, Bulelani, and the lead up to that, post that, the recall of the former president from office, do you think that that is a story that former President Zuma would believe about Mbeki, who wanted to help him?
Yes.
You think so?
Oh, yes. JZ and Thabo were very close. They worked very well together. Even when I was in government, I would go to meetings there at Mahlabandlovu, and the two of them will be there. Even before that. And I worked with both of them. And I worked also with President Zuma before. So I know they're very close. You would believe that. At a particular point in time, they were close.
I want to pick up on that because a book has subsequently been written about attempts to block Zuma from ascending to Mahlabandlovu. And you would know the author of that book, Vusi Mavimbela. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I know it's about your book, but it's just an element about this particular conversation. It's very interesting. Well, we continue in a moment with the former NPA head, Bulelani Ngcuka. And Mr. Ngcuka, we were on the subject of the relationship between former President Mbeki and the former Deputy President to Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, who subsequently would be removed from cabinet, fired, as a result of the arms deal case that he needed to attend to. The reason I bring up the book by Vusi Mavimbela, the former ambassador, who also would have been in the presidency for some time, is that he writes about attempts to block Zuma's ascendance to Mahlabandlovu, well, starting with the ANC, of course. And the reason I question this close relationship is that if indeed they were that close, and if former President Mbeki has not said anything to rebut what has been written by Vusi Mavimbela in his book, does that, to the public's mind, still paint a picture of two people who were comrades, who were inseparable at one particular point in time? If so, why this attempt to block him? Why would you not want him to be, why would you not want the best for your comrade?
I don't know the attempts that were made to block him. But thinking for myself, I mean, I've said this before, and I think you know it too. It would not have been a good idea. It was not a good idea to have JZ as the president of the country.
You've said this before?
I've said that before, and I'm saying it again. And therefore, I would understand if there were comrades who felt the same then and thought that the best thing would be to ask him not to stand. This would have been good for the country. The evidence speaks for itself now.
What would have been the reasons at the time for JZ not being fit to be president? Because that's what this was about. Is he fit to be president? If not, what were the reasons? What were the signals?
Oh, they were there. You know it. You know that at the time when he became the president, there were all these rumors about his involvement with Sabir Sheikh and everywhere else. And we knew that. And so you went in there with your eyes wide open. You knew that there was a problem. And so I wouldn't understand anyone who will say they did not know. We knew at the time that there were problems.
In your book, you write about the difficulty of pursuing this case, even though, by the way, you say publicly, yes, there's a prima facie case against the deputy president. However, the case is not winnable. And that is why the former president has always had a problem with you, that if you're not going to charge me, why announce that you're doing such a thing in the first place?
Yes.
Talk to me about that, but also the difficulties at the home front, because your wife is a cabinet minister.
Yes. Let me say this. There's more to my life than Zuma, by the way. That's part of the reason why we wrote the book. Because I see the whole interview is focusing around that. The team that was running with the case recommended to us that they must prosecute, is it? That they had sufficient evidence to prosecute him. I put together another team to review that decision.
So there were two teams?
Yes. There was the team that was running with the investigation. There was the team that was reviewing that decision. I asked them to look at the evidence dispassionately and advise me. They did that. They came to different conclusions than the Billy team. And I put that to a senior advocate at the time. Independent senior advocate. I said, this is what we have. This is my decision. What do you think? He concurred with me. He said, you're right. So there was evidence that indeed there is this word that I used then, prima facie case against him. There was evidence for that. We announced on a Saturday. On a Monday, we served the indictment on Shapir Sheikh, which then disclosed all this evidence on which my decision to say this prima facie case was based.
Yeah.
So, if I had not said that, I would have been wrong. And people would have been surprised that in the light of all this evidence, why I did not charge him. Because I would have said there was no evidence, when there was, although I found it to be insufficient for a conviction. So, it was a difficult decision to take, but it is one that I'm comfortable with up to today.
Yeah.
It was the right decision to do. Yes, my wife was in cabinet, and those were very trying times for her. Because she sits in cabinet, attends meetings. I mean, one of the incidents is she's in cabinet just a week before I took the decision to charge Shapir Sheikh. And she leaves for Cape Town. And the meeting goes on. After she left, Deputy President Zuma was chairing the cabinet meeting at the time. He turned to Matuna and attacked Matuna for allowing me to continue with the investigation. He tore into him. At that point, Matuna felt compelled to resign, tendered his resignation at that cabinet meeting and left. So whilst I was working late in the evening, my wife calls me to say, hey, isukile the cabinet, after she had left. And Matuna had stepped down. So he called me, Matuna subsequently called me to tell me, I can do it. We are alone in that mess. I'm out of here. So I drove off to his house and said, no, Kala, you can't do this. You can't do this. We've been working well together. You must stay on. Unfortunately, President Mbeki came back from holiday and called Matuna, who then withdrew his resignation.
Wow.
So it was very tense at the time. It affected many people, not just me and my wife. And for her to be working in that environment was very, very trying.
Because subsequent to the former Deputy President Zuma being dismissed from cabinet, she then occupies the position of
again,
Deputy President.
That was again the most difficult decision for the family. President Mbeki took the decision to appoint her. And we sit and discuss this. And before, the rumors were out there that the choice is between her and Nkosazana. And we discussed this at home and said, no, he can't be serious. This thing will feed into the conspiracy theory. That we did all the work that we're doing so that we can pave the way for you to be the Deputy President. You can't take this job. We agree. She flies off to America on work related matters. She gets to America and wakes me up. He says, hey, indoor phone. Hey, Lendo phone. What does he say? He's offering me the job. What do you think I should do? My first reaction was, but we discussed this. But now that the offer has arrived, I say, you must take it. He says, no, you can't say that. No, I don't want this thing. I said, the only reason you would not take this job is because of me. And this is the greatest opportunity in your life. You are appointed based on your skills and your competence. And you would not take that because of me. How do you think I'm going to feel for the rest of my life? And you know, let me finish. And you know that I did nothing wrong. She says yes. And also, you'll be responding to these false accusations of there being a conspiracy theory. She says, no. Talk to my parents. This is very important. Talk to my parents and discuss with them. I said, no, you must take the job. I phoned them. My mother-in-law says, no, they're going to kill my child. She mustn't take the job. My father-in-law says, band, I'm poor to president. Let's not disappoint the president. So I had my father-in-law on my side. So it was just a matter of persuading my mother-in-law. Once we did that, and then she accepted the job. That's it.
Because of time, I mean, I could sit with you here the whole day. But there's one crucial element, and it's not part of your book, but the last time you were here, we commented on the state of politics. And at the time, it had to do with the Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule, possibly being charged. And I just want to remind you of that and find out what your views are today, now that the Secretary General of the ANC has been charged. Let's just have a listen to what you said at the time, the last time you were here.
Prosecuting an ANC General Secretary, in this particular instance, somebody said it's like prosecuting the Prime Minister of a country, because he's the head of the governing party. Now, you are going to remove that person from the day-to-day functions that he has to carry out. The impact of that decision is huge. So it is a decision that you don't take lightly. I am satisfied where I'm sitting, that Shamila and them have taken those things into consideration, that the evidence they have is sufficient for them to be confident of victory.
You remember those comments, and this is, I want to end this interview with your thoughts about where things are right now. The case has not been dropped against him, but there have been some suggestions that the charges may not possibly stick. You still think that it was a prudent decision for Shamila Batoy and her team to charge the Secretary General of the ANC?
Oh, yes, I think so. I don't know personally, because I've not seen the docket. But I know Shamila, and I know the prosecutor was prosecuting the case. He was there during my time. I don't think that they will take a case that they know that is weak to court. I have sufficient confidence in them to believe that they think they have a strong case.
Mr. Ngcuka, let me thank you very much for your time. We are going to, I'm sure, even the viewers, they're going to go out there and get your book. And as you said, your life story is not just about former President Jacob Zuma. It's a whole broad discussion, because the story, for example, about your wife in cabinet and what the feeling was at the time, it's just some of what is contained in that book. Thank you very much for giving us a taste of what is contained in that book. Bulelani Ngcuka, he is the former NPA head, and the title of his book is indeed his name, Bulelani Ngcuka, and it is called The Sting in the Tail. That's it.